Vladimir Putin when he spoke to the Munich Security Conference back in 2007, when he challenged the unitary world order that led by the United States in a single polar world. And he said, no, that day is gone. That ship has sailed. There is a new world order and a need for a new European security order that goes beyond the NATO concept. And Putin put the marker on the table. He said that what you're doing here is wrong. You know, people keep saying, Russia's the aggressor. They had no choice. What do you call an ostensibly defensive military alliance which lies about its intentions to expand in a post-Cold War era, and then goes on the offensive, bombing a European capital, Belgrade? I mean, everybody's sitting there going, oh, Kiev is being bombed, first time in Europe. No, NATO bombed Belgrade without any authority from the Security Council, in violation of international law, doing the exact same thing that they're accusing Russia of doing now. NATO said, oh, you can't create these independent states of Lugansk and Donetsk. Well, yes, you can, because you guys created the independent state of Kosovo, carved it right out of Serbia, again, with no founding in international law, nothing. And then NATO went on to basically legitimize the illegal invasion and occupation of Iraq, even though NATO as an organization didn't participate. Several NATO members did. And in 2004, a few months after the occupation, NATO legitimized the occupation by creating the NATO training mission in Iraq. NATO went into Afghanistan. How does a North Atlantic Treaty Organization end up in Afghanistan? NATO bombed Libya for the sole purpose of achieving regime change. And so now Russia's looking at this saying, we're not happy with this offensive military organization, which is expanding to our borders. And every time they absorb a member, what happens? They automatically get covered by the shroud of Article 5, which means that if Russia took action against one nation who might overstep their boundary, let's say a Baltic state who has a grudge to bear, or Poland, who definitely has a burr in their saddle about Russia, all of NATO is supposed to come in. That is a threat. That is an existential threat to Russia. And so, when Stoltenberg says a new, European security order is being promulgated by Russia, he's right. Russia's fed up with this. That's why Russia said, y'all got to go back to 1997 borders before you started expanding. That doesn't mean that you dismantle NATO. Russia's not calling for the dismantlement of NATO. What they're saying, though, is all those British troops, French troops, American troops that are currently deployed in Poland into the Baltic states got to go home, get away from our borders. And Russia, I think what this Ukraine situation, again, let me just start by saying this is a tragedy. Anytime there's a war, it's a human tragedy. I'm not sitting here cheering for war. It's literally the worst possible option. But they teach you in martial arts that when you get in a fight with someone and you back them into a corner, they're going to kick your butt because they got nothing to lose. Russia literally was backed into a corner. And so Russia is responding the only way they can. And people are only talking today about Ukraine. This is about Ukraine. This is about Russia denying Ukraine NATO member. No, this is about a new order in Europe. NATO refuses to engage Russia on the topic of returning to 1997 orders and all this. They say it's unthinkable to even engage that way. Well, Russia's changing the geopolitical reality. They've already changed it with Belarus. If you recall, 2 years ago, everybody was talking about Belarus being plucked away from Russia by Europe. Mike Pompeo visited and sold them liquid natural gas. And there was a color revolution that was going to happen after the August 2020 election. And what happened since then? Belarus is a Russian client state right now. Russia took one of their elite offensive organizations, the First Guards Tank Army, and permanently redeployed it to Belarus.